Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's Peer-to-Peer World Virtual Conference. The conference is brought to you by 5 companies that serve nonprofits, and they've come together to share their unique experience and knowledge with you today. The companies are Accelerated Charity Growth, boodle.ai, Cathexis Partners, Op3, and Turnkey. Next, Eric, can you do like the MC slide? One more.
Yep.
My name is Nuti. I'm Editor-in-Chief and Content Director at Nonprofit Pro, and I'm delighted to join you as MC for today's conference. Next slide. Next slide. The title of the session is The New Age of Peer-to-Peer Fundraising, How a Human AI Team Can Drive Donor Acquisition. During the session, please feel free to submit any questions you may have through the questions tab in your GoToWebinar control panel. The speakers will take your questions toward the end of the session, so please note that the session will be recorded and made available online after today's conference. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Eric Okimoto, CEO of boodle.ai.
Thanks, Nu. Welcome, everyone. My name is Eric Okimoto. I'm the CEO of boodle.ai. And I'm presenting today here with Christy Kaufman, the CEO of Coda Support Foundation. Real quickly, a little bit about me. I'm been with boodle.ai since its inception. I'm one of the co-founders, and we spent the last few years building the capability to improve the peer-to-peer fundraising experience. Prior to that, I was a management consultant turned international development technology guy. And so very familiar with the nonprofit world and the NGO world, but very excited to be in the nonprofit technology world for the past few years, and excited to tell you a little bit about what we're doing and how we're trying to help improve the peer-to-peer fundraiser experience. Christy?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Christy Kaufman. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Coda Support Foundation. We are a military veteran support nonprofit. I didn't really have much to do with the military growing up. I went to Berkeley, which is about as far from the Army as you can get. Happened to marry a soldier right before 9/11. Been thrust into that world and quickly realized the way the Army was going about supporting families and mental health was not great, and did everything I could do to change it. But it turns out they don't love when wives do that. And so about 8 years later, I wrote an op-ed for the Washington Post that kind of got me in a position to start the nonprofit, and I've been doing it for the past 8 or 9 years. And of course, you don't realize when you're all well-intentioned and you want to change the world that fundraising is going to be a huge part of that. So I learned quick, and we partnered with boodle.ai and had some great success with them. So happy to join the call.
Thanks, Christy. So the agenda for this session, I'm going to speak a little bit, we're going to speak a little bit about how AI is changing the world in general, then touch on peer-to-peer fundraising and how human AI teams can help. I think everyone here, if you're attending or listening to this session, you're interested in how it all works and what goes into that. So we're going to explain that in a little more detail and kind of pull back the curtains of how this works. And also provide some thoughts on where AI will take the nonprofit technology community in the coming years. All the while talking about some examples within Coda Support and our examples of where we're proving this out and how we're demonstrating this value in the peer-to-peer landscape. We now live in a world being transformed by AI. I don't think this comes as a surprise to anyone. AI is becoming ubiquitous in all facets of our life. It underpins a lot of our home technology, our smart technologies, our automobiles, the world we live in general. Whether that's Alexa, Netflix, Google, Facebook, everything we do, whether we see it or not, AI is making decisions, it's providing decision support, and it's facilitating a faster world, a world that is less about crunching numbers, less about trying to use human intervention and more about an automated world that are optimized for better outcomes. What we're going to talk about a little bit is one, what that means for the peer-to-peer world and the nonprofit world, but also put it in a little context of what it's doing in other industries. So historians would point to 4 industrial revolutions of the last 300 years that have really changed the pace of societal advancement. The first being mechanical production, very much around the steam engine and the ability to just drive industrialization at a faster scale. Secondly, mass production and the assembly line and how that changed the world to include the addition of electricity into the mechanical production. As we all know, in the last 60, 70 years, computers have very much changed the world we live in, increasingly the internet. And we're now in what's known as the 4th industrial revolution, intellectual automation and artificial intelligence, to include everything that is enabled by that, whether that's robots, greater virtualization, artificial virtualization and whatnot. So what does that mean in terms of the technology landscape? There are numerous companies budding and growing in the IT space. This is just a quick snapshot of the AI landscape across different industries, but this is increasingly growing. You may note the nonprofit world is not on this board. It's a very nascent technology in nonprofit technology, but it is growing quickly, and we anticipate in the next 5 to 10 years, it will underpin most all technologies in the nonprofit and other industries. So we're all peer-to-peer fundraisers. Let's dive into how AI can actually improve peer-to-peer fundraising and how it can help. Our view in the peer-to-peer space is that AI will make it a much more personalized, targeted experience, and we're going to explain a little bit about how that changes the game. We believe there are 2 main sources of peer-to-peer engagement: Facebook and email. There is very personalized engagement, but very much peer-to-peer fundraisers kind of use social platforms, or they email for the most part to meet their targets, meet their goals for fundraising. That said, we know, and studying industry trends, mass email is making the world very noisy. It is increasingly clogging inboxes. People are tuning out, and it means that there needs to be a better way to have targeted personal email engagement. As I said, all indicators are that people are turning out. This is for advocacy email, but the rates for peer-to-peer emails are similar. Fundraising open rates are down, click-through rates are down, email response rates are also down. But we still know personalized peer-to-peer engagements matter. They matter, but they're hard work. The peer-to-peer fundraisers that raise thousands of dollars for you, and they do it by a lot of legwork in terms of reaching out to people personally or sending personalized emails, they spend a lot of time crafting those emails, going through their Rolodex, really looking for the right people to engage and the right email to send for that engagement. In effect, it's hard work. Additionally, we believe that personalized peer-to-peer engagement should focus on people who want to meet your cause. Right now, we feel that peer-to-peer engagements are often a relationship game. It's people reaching out to people they know and people who are likely to give based on a relationship rather than a shared affinity. So what do we know about the email response rates? We know that one peer-to-peer fundraising outreach will, 1 in 4, or approximately 1 in 4, yields a result, whereas approximately 1 in 1,250 people yields a result in a non-peer-to-peer environment. So it's a much more effective channel of marketing, but it does take work, and it's that work that results in that higher ROI, as well as you're leveraging as a peer-to-peer fundraiser, as a nonprofit, you're leveraging the social capital and the relationship capital of that peer-to-peer fundraiser. So where we think this is going, we think fundraisers are increasingly going to be lead generators. They're not just going to be obtaining new fundraisers, but they're going to also be obtaining new donors, donations, new donors, and major gifts and larger gifts. We think that fundraisers increasingly will not just be getting one-time donations, but getting new fundraisers and new donors providing recurring donations. Our goal at boodle.ai is to increase the percentage of donors that become new donors by helping your original fundraiser reach the right people. So how do we get fundraisers past what we often term the quid pro quo 20? When we speak with fundraisers, especially in the kind of higher end fundraiser space, they often talk about a quid pro quo 20 or quid pro quo 50. You know, people they know they can reach out to who are going to provide a donation because they always donate to their cause when their friend or colleague asks for a donation. And key to, we think, success in the peer-to-peer fundraising space is helping peer-to-peer fundraisers get beyond that quid pro quo 20. Dunbar's number is a number that's often cited. Facebook brought it to prominence in terms of a network of friends that people actually know very well, but it's the upper limits of that capacity to know well. Yet we do know that networks, especially digital networks, are growing. Increasingly, people's LinkedIn networks, Facebook networks, email contacts are growing larger and larger. We live in a digital world, and increasingly the numbers of contacts that people know and are acquainted with is growing. So, how do we go from here to there? Artificial intelligence and big data. When we started out on this endeavor, we very much felt we knew that data was going to be core to this, but we didn't realize that artificial intelligence was going to be part of this. We always felt that to really empower peer-to-peer fundraisers, we had to have better data underpinning a lot of what was going on, and we felt that was key to kind of driving more success. We never started out with artificial intelligence as part of this equation. What we quickly realized was that artificial intelligence helps make sense of all the data we're trying to help empower peer-to-peer fundraisers with. The same prospecting data that is used by development directors to help understand prospects. We want to make that part of the equation for peer-to-peer fundraisers, but make it more part of the process so that they are empowered with decisions, but it's not creepy in terms of the specific wealth prospecting details about their contacts. So in other words, to give them the tools to be effective, but very much not make this about providing prospect data to a peer-to-peer fundraiser. So why artificial intelligence machine learning? Fueled by data, we believe AI and machine learning systems can learn, see patterns, and self-optimize for outcomes. And more importantly, accomplish what previously took large consulting teams weeks, but in seconds. Machine learning provides advanced capabilities to small organizations at a fraction of the cost, and it helps make sense of all the data we're trying to bring together to help improve the peer-to-peer fundraiser experience. AI scares people, and we fully understand that. When we started to initially speak with people about how AI was part of our solution, we sometimes were reluctant to even make it part of our brand. Because when most people view artificial intelligence, especially those that this is their first encounter with AI, they think to what they know from movies and TV. It's not something that they think of as helping to automate, but something that is threatening in a way. This is how we view artificial intelligence. This is our boodlebot, and it's basically your AI digital assistant. He never wrestles control from you. You always are in control. He's there to help you, to be a digital fundraising assistant on your peer-to-peer fundraiser shoulders and help guide them with information, insight, and expertise about messaging, about the right people to reach out to, and do it in a way that's friendly, engaging, to encourage your peer-to-peer fundraisers and give them the confidence to make that ask. So how do we do it? We take a lot of data in different databases, data in spreadsheets, lists, CRM data, email lists, event lists, and a lot of that is messy data that needs something to make sense of it to make it usable. From that, we go through an identity resolution process. That process very much, and then an identity resolution process. That process helps figure out who people are so that we can go through an enrichment process. And that enrichment process then provides the context for the machine learning. The identity enrichment adds over 400, now actually over 500 data points to every single contact informing the machine learning, whether on the donor side or the peer-to-peer fundraising side. So it's this fused data that informs the AI. Fused data, then with algorithms, is what provides a model. And these models are what are then applied to anything from a direct mail contact list to a peer-to-peer fundraiser social list to then make your boodlebot intelligent about what he or she is looking for and the recommendations they're providing. So now I'd like to pass off to Christy to tell a little bit about the experience with Coda Support Foundation and one of their key board members in using the tool. Christy?
Yeah, so we have a board that has a pretty deep network, particularly my co-founder and our chairman. I think he's got like 3 or 4 different email accounts. And so we were raising money specifically to hire another case coordinator, what we call a veteran peer navigator, because for every one of those people we add, we can help an additional 250 to 300 troops, veterans, and families a year. And so Alan ran a campaign using boodle.ai to try to do that through his network. And basically what the platform did, which we couldn't have done on our own, was pulled likely donors from the information that they have in their platform and matched it up against what he had in his own network. So I think the guy that ended up giving us $10,000, basically just over that email, was like a 95% likelihood of donating. And so, Alan has thousands and thousands of contacts. I don't even think that he talked to this person for 15, 20 years. So I don't think he ever would have thought about reaching out to this guy had the system not pulled it for him. So I think that was the biggest value for us, is identifying potential targets that we would just basically have no other idea, that they even existed or that they were so likely to donate.
Thanks, Christy. So the question often comes up, so how do how do we motivate fundraisers and the board and to use a tool like this and basically use stronger capabilities in their prospecting. In our experience, it's easy if you are making it more convenient for them. What we see is it is hard to rally peer-to-peer fundraisers, but when they're ready and motivated to fundraise, the easier you can make it for them in terms of prospecting and messaging, that is valuable to them. And when they have that aha moment and they say, okay, this makes my life easier in reaching my goal, it quickly becomes apparent that they're more willing to do something if it's less of an ask in terms of time and effort that they're putting into it. Likewise, and I'll let Christy jump in here. We, for Coda Support Foundation, we rallied the board by having a happy hour, which, Christy, I believe that was your idea, and it worked really well. Do you want to jump in?
Yes, well, alcohol always makes everything better, so it did work really well. I think that because the platform itself is kind of a social peer platform, I think it helps in terms of delivery and getting people into it and understanding it to have a social aspect to it, particularly if your board skews older, as ours does. And so most of them are relatively comfortable with technology. I think one of the biggest challenges that we have around fundraising in general is the majority of these people are used to being on the writing side of the check. And so, of course, we all expect our boards to help us raise funds. And I think this platform, with its ability to identify likely candidates, makes them more comfortable reaching out to folks that they would be interested. So I think there's a level of comfort that really helps. And then once they use the technology, it's relatively easy to use. And I think that one of the feedback that we got from our board members that we brought back to Eric and his team was just about the privacy issues, because a lot of them ask questions about that. What happens to my emails once they get rolled up into the system? And then, Eric, I'll let you talk a little bit about that. But the answers that Eric gave were enough to make them feel comfortable.
Yep, and just touching on that, we very much the emails, we reiterate over and over again that we are a tool and not a data company. And we believe increasingly, as AI underpins everything and big tech and big data underpins everything, it's important that you as a buyer and as very much someone who the peer-to-peer fundraiser trusts as doing diligence on companies that you're working with, understand the privacy policies and the terms and conditions of use of both yours and the fundraiser's data, to understand when you're using tools and when you are sharing your data with platforms that are more interested in understanding people so that more ad dollars can be sold. So it's an important understanding for you as a buyer and as someone who your peer-to-peer fundraisers look to due diligence, that you understand the difference. So that is the end of the presentation, and I realize I went through that pretty quickly. Any questions at this point?
Eric, there was one in the question center there. Are the data sets used relevant for Canadian donors sets, or is it US based, or what about international?
So right now it is primarily US based. We are working on expanding to Canadian data. And while the tool can be used in Canada and it can be used by Canadians in the US, we don't think the experience will be ideal if it was fully used by Canadian fundraisers with a lot of Canadian contacts. The underpinning enrichment data is very much, it's more US based and US resident based.
Got it. Thank you. I don't see any other questions at this time.
Okay, well, should anyone have any other questions for Christy or myself, here's our contact details. Feel free to email myself or Christy and we can kind of discuss in more detail. And thank you everyone for attending.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Eric and Christy. So thank everyone for joining us. If you want to learn more about peer-to-peer fundraising, Nonprofit Pro is hosting a conference on November 4th and 5th in Philadelphia. And if you want to learn more about it, you can go to p2p.nonprofitpro.com. And if you want to attend the next session, you're going to need to log in using the link that you received in your email when you first registered. So with that, everybody, thanks so much for joining and have a great day.